How do you consume your daily news? And you absolutely consume daily news. You might say, well, I'm not a big news person. I don't spend a lot of time reading the news. I don't follow the news. Maybe you'll say something like this, I'm not a political person. In our day and age, you can't get away from it. We have more access to news more often than at any time in history. It's amazing. Both good and bad amazing. It's amazing. All day long, all night long, whenever you turn your phone on or turn the TV on or flip your laptop open, there is some headline screaming at you for attention. And you know how headlines are written. They're written to get your attention and then to cause you to do something, to emote. You need to feel something about what you just read. That's how those headlines are thrust upon us. And as you read those things, if you're anything like me, sometimes your first emotion is one of anxiety or worry. You start asking questions like, how is this thing going to end? Because clearly it's going to end. That's what the headline tells me. And then sometimes you read beyond that and start to figure some things out. I don't know how you consume your news, but I have come to the conclusion as a parent, now you're going to say, how does this connect? As a parent, I have come to the conclusion that you should consume your news, you should read the headlines the same way you might raise a daughter. Pause for effect. If you have a daughter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, let me explain it to you. I get on social media and not news-related social media. Sometimes you read these stories and people are telling stories about their families and something that's going on. One of the funny things that I read is when a parent, typically a mom, who only has boys, there's nothing wrong with only having boys, but they'll tell a story about their boys, particularly their young boys. You know, their kids who are under 5. Boys like to run into walls and jump off stuff and climb up on tables and take their clothes off. And for some reason, the whole world's a toilet to a little kid, right? So they're making a mess all over the place. And mom will tell this story, maybe accompanying that story will be a picture. And they'll hashtag boy mom, right? Hashtag boy mom. The hardest thing to be in the world is a boy mom because boys are crazy. Right? I have 2 boys and I have 2 girls. And I can acknowledge that sometimes raising boys is a crazy adventure because they're often out of control. But it's an out of control that you understand, right? It's going to happen. You get it. They're going to be fine. Maybe a few trips to the emergency room, but they're going to be fine. With a girl, it's a whole different adventure. When I come home and I talk to one of my girls, I have an older daughter and a little bit of a younger daughter, a girl who's coming into her adolescent years. And regardless of which one I'm talking to, it seems that when I come through the door, there's always an emergency. Something has happened today, and they give me the headline version of that. Something has happened today that's going to cause the world, or at least their world, to come to an end. And they're out of control, and they're emotional, and what am I going to do about it as the dad? You have to fix this. Nothing's probably going to fix it, but do your best. And this is the discussion we have, and it's real like this, and everybody's excited. I've learned over the years, when that happens, to take a deep breath, help them take a deep breath, and I've often also learned that it's not helpful to tell them to take a deep breath because they're so worked up, right? But to get through the emotional part of it, to get through the initial salvo of shots, the headlines that they're throwing at me, the basic information that really they're so consumed with, to get past that, to let all of that come out, and then to start to work through the details that led up to that, to ask questions that clarify what's actually happening, and to really try to figure out what it is they're experiencing. What I've learned is that if I'm willing to get past the headline that they're throwing at me, most of the time, the issue is not as bad as it seems or feels to them, and it's real to them, I'm not discounting that, but it's typically not as bad as they feel like it is, and if we'll take some time to work through the issues, we really can begin to move forward. We can navigate this thing together. I've learned this not just in raising my daughters, hashtag girl dad, that's my hashtag. I've learned this in every other relationship in my life. Whether it's my marriage relationship or my friendships that I have or other relationships at work or whatever the case. In all of these relationships, as you're dealing with people, what we see most of the time are the headlines, and we make determinations, often emotional ones, based on the headlines, and we decide how we feel about someone or what we think about them based on what we see. When really the very best way to approach any relationship and any situation in a relationship is to get beyond the headline, to figure out what's actually happening, what's causing that kind of behavior, what's causing them to say that, and what's bringing this up right now. Why are they so emotional about it? Why am I feeling so emotional about it? And getting beyond that headline, getting the facts, and beginning to navigate our way forward. It's amazing how clear things can become when we get past the initial salvo of headlines. So it is, and that right there can help you if that's all you get out of this. But so it is principally with the news that we consume every day. We live in a very global environment. We cannot get away from things that are happening on the other side of the globe. One of the biggest stories in the news right now are the things that are happening in China. The coronavirus, we talk about that and the implications to the larger world of the coronavirus. These other issues that are happening politically and economically and in medicine around the world, they impact us here. We can't get away from that. We need to understand what's going on. News is not the enemy. But as we're consuming news, we need to get beyond the headlines and understand what's actually being said. Here's something we need to understand. We need to understand that often headlines are written to manipulate us. I know that's hard to believe. But so often, particularly in the world of social media, headlines are written to manipulate us. They're written to get us to click, to read the article, to open the thing, to follow the stream that they've set in front of us so that they can have more clicks on their side and they can justify what they're doing. Ultimately, it comes back to a monetary incentive. We know that, but instead of responding to what we see, we need to be discerning consumers of the information that we receive. As we read news articles or we get on the social media sites, and there are many, as we talk to people who are really in a state of believing the world or their world may come to an end because of what they heard over there, we need to be the kind of people that don't respond to the headline, don't necessarily even respond to the so-called expert who's pushing the headline, but instead begin to ask a series of questions. We need to ask questions like this. Why are they pushing this headline on me? Why is this so urgent right now? If this is demanding action right now, why does action need to be taken right now? Why are they pushing me to respond at this exact moment? Beyond that, who is the they that's giving me this information? We need to understand what it is that qualifies the people who are communicating these headlines to communicate them. We need to stop simply reading headlines and read the information that comes underneath the headlines. The headline is built on top of a story. Let's read the story. So often we find out that the story has nothing to do with the actual headline. We need to be the kind of people who are discerning enough with the information that we receive that we can make informed, helpful, hopeful decisions with that information once it's distilled down. I believe that so many in our world are simply consuming the headlines and they're controlling the conversation, and we need some adults in the room, some parents, if you will, that can listen, can consume, and then can begin to ask the hard questions to make the right decisions. With people, I try to believe the best of them until they prove different. Sometimes people will prove that they really shouldn't be trusted, that they're not the kind of person I need to spend time with. But until I get beyond the headline and really figure that out, I just believe the best in them and just take them at face value and then try to discern what they're saying and figure out if it's real or not. When we begin to do that, what we begin to discover is that things aren't as bad as they sometimes feel, that people, generally speaking, aren't as sinister as we sometimes think they are, and that we can move forward in a meaningful, hopeful way. Instead of living a life of panic because someone told you should be panicked, instead of living a life of anxiety and frustration because someone told you that you should, instead of looking for the next place that you're going to run to because you're told that the place you're in right now is probably going to implode or explode, look beyond the headlines and make the right decisions based on the actual information that can inform those decisions and allow you to move forward in a hope-filled, purposeful manner. Be the adult in the room. I've found that my relationship with my girls is so much better when I'm willing to listen, that I ask good questions, and when they're ready, we put a plan together to navigate beyond whatever that headline is. So it is in your world. Take control of your life. Take control of what you know to be true, because you've done the work. You've gotten beyond the headline, you've figured out what's real, and you've acted on the truth. Look beyond the headlines, and you will move forward in a way that's not full of fear, not full of anxiety, but that has hope and direction.